The U.S. Navy expected a smuggling craft. What they boarded instead looked like a weapon of war. A 35-foot steel ghost coated in radar-absorbing material, powered by a 2,000-pound lithium battery array, its controls wired to a homemade autopilot. Inside, over $417 million in narcotics, and a route log proving it had crossed the Caribbean twice before. But here's the part that stunned investigators most. Intelligence suggested at least 12 more identical subs were being built. This wasn't one mission. It was the blueprint for a submarine empire. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. At 2:12 a.m. on October 11th, 2025, a faint shimmer crept across a radar screen at the Coast Guard's Area Mobility Command Center. The signal looked harmless, a drifting shadow about 40 nautical miles south of Pensacola, Florida, until someone realized it had no beacon, no transponder, and no reason to be moving that slowly. For nearly a minute, it stayed motionless, then began sliding east at 6 knots, half buried beneath the Gulf's surface. Analysts called it a ghost, a contact that wasn't supposed to exist. 40 miles offshore, the sea was calm enough to hear your own breath. But inside the command room, every display flickered with layered sound maps, infrared feeds, and encrypted message bursts moving between ships already mobilizing. Commander Rachel Decker was the one who gave the order to shadow the contact. The USCGC Hamilton adjusted heading, joined by the destroyer USS Delbert D. Black and an MQ-9 Reaper drone circling overhead at 20,000 feet. The Reaper's thermal lens caught a faint orange thread across the dark water. Soft heat bleeding from a hidden engine no larger than a car. A P-8A Poseidon made a low pass and confirmed an irregular metallic outline glimmering just below the waves. Whatever was down there wasn't a trawler or a buoy. It moved with intent, rising and dipping like something designed to hide. By 3:12 a.m., Hamilton's systems switched to passive sonar, letting the ocean speak first. For 6 long minutes, the audio feed remained empty except for the slow pulse of current and hull noise. Then, through the static, came a single tone, 42 hertz, repeating every 18 seconds. The computers tagged it instantly. A screw rotation pattern. They were tracking a live sub. No engine roar, no cavitation, just a soft heartbeat of propellers nearly 60 feet under. The realization moved fast across encrypted chat channels linking the Coast Guard, the Navy, and the DEA. Above them, the Reaper adjusted position. At sea level, the cutter's tightened formation. Air and water units were now locked on the same invisible target. Just before 4 a.m., the contact breached for 6 seconds, enough time for exhaust to vent, and vanished again. That brief glimpse sealed the order. Execute Phase Delta. Engines on every chasing vessel roared to life. Hamilton surged to 28 knots as 4 speedboats detached, each packed with sailors and agents hunched behind mounted Mk-48s and carbines. Overhead, an MH-60R Seahawk descended, searchlights skimming the black water. The target was found moving east at barely 8 knots, nose tipping slightly with the tide. The goal wasn't destruction, but seizure. When divers finally reached the sub, they clamped to its hull, torching through a welded seam before being met with gunfire bursting from a narrow hatch. The firefight lasted 6 minutes. 3 smugglers went down, 5 surrendered. 1 sailor took shrapnel to the leg but kept his post. As the hatch blew open, water gushed through electrical conduits, shorting out control panels. The steel craft tilted, leaking fuel. Flames rippled across the surface in thin orange lines as crew pulled survivors out. Commander Decker's voice came steady through the comms. Target located. Package secured. Inside, the boarding team stared at the layout. A pressure hull no longer than a city bus, crammed with dense cargo stacks sealed in industrial black wrap. Preliminary count. More than 3 tons of narcotics valued around $417 million. Each pack labeled in Spanish shorthand, weight marked in ink fading from salt. The vessel itself, a custom-built semi-sub, bore signs of high-end engineering. Radar-absorbing paint, carbon-wrapped bolts, lithium-ion batteries imported from Shenzhen Dynamics Corporation. To investigators, it looked less like a smuggler's gamble and more like a prototype. And yet the drugs were only part of it. As technicians pried open the scorched control panel, they discovered embedded electronics and data ports that pointed far beyond one crew or one shipment. What they pulled from its navigation console hinted that a much larger operation was already rising beneath the waves. The real shock came once investigators started tearing open the console panels. Beneath the charred wiring and shattered glass lay a strange mix of technology that looked both outdated and advanced. Rows of Soviet-era depth gauges shared space with modern circuit boards, a lithium-ion array nearly half the size of a small car, and a satellite-linked autopilot marked only with a stencil. Nav-02. The hybrid design puzzled engineers. It was as if someone had merged a Cold War relic with a piece of cutting-edge drone tech. Each component told a story, from recycled bolts etched with Cyrillic letters to brand-new Chinese battery cells, sealed and stamped with the logo of Shenzhen Dynamics Corporation. When power was restored to the damaged modules, the autopilot screen flickered on, and with it came the beginning of the real discovery. The investigators uncovered data logs hidden behind encrypted partitions. They showed 2 complete runs from Venezuela to Florida in the previous month, each timed to avoid satellite or coastal radar sweeps. A third route file was half-loaded when they seized the vessel. That meant another sub, already in motion or waiting to launch, had received the same coordinates through the satellite link. The Nav-02 network wasn't a simple autopilot. It was a chain of interconnected craft following a synchronized pattern across the Caribbean. Questions spread through the analysts' room. Who built this? Who trained these crews? And where were the others now? The sophistication didn't match the usual patchwork smuggling design. It had structure, testing protocols, and consistent telemetry tags. Next came the schematics stored in the encrypted folder. Line drawings, assembly diagrams, and electronic signatures indicated at least 12 vessels under simultaneous construction. Each blueprint listed identical frame dimensions, battery loadouts, and carbon-wrapped bolt specifications. Even the serial numbers followed a uniform format, confirming these weren't improvisations but mass-produced craft. The cost was estimated around $2.8 million per unit. That price placed the operation firmly in the realm of organized industry rather than crime of opportunity. By tracing component imports, agents identified shipments of radar-muting paint and battery modules routed through shell companies registered in Panama. Everything pointed to a covert production network with offshore facilities near Puerto La Cruz, guarded and supplied under the protection of corrupt military officials. The implications extended well beyond narcotics. Each vessel could run nearly 600 nautical miles without surfacing, carrying 3 tons of load beneath detection thresholds most defense systems considered background noise. Traditional radar, acoustic buoys, and patrol craft weren't calibrated for these profiles. Maritime planners calculated that an entire batch of such vessels, operating in rotation, could move 40 tons of narcotics a year and vanish into coastal mangroves before dawn. The realization hit naval analysts hard. This wasn't smuggling in the old sense. This was logistics. A fleet, not of warships, but of commercial submarines, constructed to bypass law enforcement entirely. One intelligence officer put it plainly. Evidence now confirmed an industrial navy, a $5 billion annual pipeline running under the waves. Command centers started redrawing operational maps, connecting previous radar anomalies to what appeared to be simulated training runs for these same craft. The Gulf had become a grid of probable corridors and choke points. Each route corresponded to shallow water channels that allowed the subs to glide between thermal layers, masking them from sonar like shadows in a layered fog. The data left no room for doubt. The captured sub was only a node in a fleet dispersed across the Caribbean. The seizure of that submarine marked the first phase of a new underwater arms race. Cartels proved they could build stealth fleets using technology once reserved for militaries. The data pulled from the NAV-02 system forced the U.S. Navy to accelerate undersea surveillance and rethink its patrol grids across the Gulf. Every route log retrieved now serves as a warning signal, proof that invisible fleets can already map our coastlines faster than detection systems can adapt. The next generation of security depends on who evolves quicker. When organized crime moves underwater, the question becomes who's waiting for them there.